God, I'm so stuffed. Oh, God. I'm still getting over Thanksgiving.
Well, it's interesting is everybody eats to their full degree, and I've never gone full tilt.
Well, no, I used to do that when I was younger. Nowadays, when you eat that much, then it sends you to the emergency room. So you don't want to overdo it. I used to do plates now. That's usually what I do.
I think I do.
I do 2 plates, and then I'll get maybe a dessert, and then I'm done. So
yeah, I'm very traditional when it comes to just Thanksgiving food in general.
So what do you eat? You get the turkey, you get the ham.
Turkey, ham. One of the things that I love, and I know it's probably just me, but I really love baked stuffed shrimp, and I get it every single year for the last couple of years. For Thanksgiving, no, it's non-traditional, but it's if there's an excuse for me to eat it, I want to have it. So, I mean, I guess sitting around and eating food is a good enough excuse to just throw that in there.
My parents got themselves a fryer, a big legit one, so that they could do a fried turkey,
like a deep fryer.
Yeah.
Yeah, I see those videos with people. It's like they have the gloves and they're just dangling it over the deep fryer outside, and they're about to dump it in a vat of acid basically, or something.
Yes. So they did that.
I've never done that.
Never had a deep fried turkey. It was pretty good. The skin is amazing.
I bet it's nice and crispy.
It's nice. I had a good Thanksgiving. I had 2 Thanksgivings. I went over to my future in-laws to eat, and then the next day I went and did it with my parents. So yeah.
Okay, I thought you did 2 in the same day.
No, just one on Wednesday, one on Thursday.
That's a lot of eating. For those of you who are not in the United States and listening to this newest episode of the Cinema Discovery Project, with your co-hosts, as always, myself, Andrew Cabral, and Stephen Billings. Thanksgiving is a yearly tradition here in the United States, and it's only for the United States. Other countries have their own quote-unquote Thanksgivings, but ours is, every last Thursday in November, every single year. And a lot of people don't understand what it's all about. It's not a big, huge history lesson. It just goes back to, like Pilgrim times and, the first harvest of surviving the first winter and all that kind of stuff. It's honestly not the best historical holiday in hindsight.
Yeah, I'm surprised social media hasn't destroyed this holiday by now.
Well, what's interesting is I think Columbus Day gets a lot more heat now for its negative connotations on history than I think Thanksgiving is, because Thanksgiving's kind of morphed into a holiday for, I guess, people to just get together with family and be thankful
they don't care about things.
What
they're just getting ready for Black Friday anyway. They don't.
Yeah, they don't care about the historical significance of Thanksgiving as opposed to Columbus Day, where it's just
I'm not sure that most Americans care about the United States historical anything. Yeah, they don't care.
I doubt it. I mean, this is not a history podcast, but I'm just saying, for those of you who don't know, that's what Thanksgiving is, and it's basically for people just to get together and eat a lot of food and watch television or whatnot. It's kind of like a pre-Christmas
it's a
pre-holiday
Christmas
thing. It really is, because you kind of do the same thing on Christmas. At least
it feels about the same. Except you get more. You get more instead of going out and shopping for things that you want. You're getting them on that.
Right.
But this episode.
Yeah, but transitioning. I was going to say, let's transition into the episode that we're going to be talking about. Not coincidentally, food movies and food, food in movies.
Do you eat your movies with food?
I often watch movies while I'm eating,
a lot.
If that's
my
thing.
favorite.
So, but we're just it's going to be a laid back episode of just us mentioning different movies that have to do with food, or different moments in movies that have food in them.
Maybe some good pairings. With what foods do I eat with certain movies?
I guess.
I don't know. I thought that might be interesting.
Just eat anything.
That might be interesting. We'll do a little improv here.
A little improv. But before we get into that, both Stephen and I have now seen Martin Scorsese's newest film, The Irishman. It has now been both in theaters and is now on Netflix. And it is 3.5 hours long. And Stephen saw it in the theater. I watched it at home on my television. And it's a film that I really, really like. And I think we want to touch on it briefly. Yeah, it's a movie, man. It's not for everyone.
Yeah, I mean, look, we talked about it
Go on.
talked about it off camera. I like the movie. I think, I mean, there's no denying how the greatness of Scorsese, his filmmaking prowess, and the actors that are on display in this movie. I just found the movie to be nothing necessarily new from Scorsese. You know, I'm somebody that's always looking for the next thing to wow me, and Scorsese's always an event. He's always somebody that you're like, I can't wait to see his next film. But this movie, to me, kind of felt like a collection of greatest hits. His greatest actors. I'm surprised he just didn't try to get DiCaprio in there just to be in there somewhere. It would have been pretty cool to get the old guard and the new guard together. That'd have been pretty cool.
Yes, it would have. I'll say this. I do agree with what you're saying, and I can understand your perspective, and like I said, I don't disagree with it. For me, it's an interesting film because it just shows a master doing masterful work when it comes to the art of filmmaking, the technical aspects of filmmaking. The acting, I think, is really fantastic. You have some of the best all-time well-known actors in this film. Al Pacino, Robert De Niro is in it. I'll say this, Joe Pesci basically coming out of retirement or out of obscurity to slip back into a Martin Scorsese film is one of the more surprising things to me because he's great in it.
Well, he's in the role and he plays the opposite of what he always typically plays, which is very understated and very, not in your face, which is what he's known for. I think people expected him to be like, brash and yelling at people and he's really...
Which is typically what he's been in Scorsese's films, whether it be Goodfellas, whether it be Casino, whether it be...
Raging Bull.
Raging Bull.
Yeah.
This is more subdued, a more serious role for him because he's playing a mobster, a gangster. For those of you who are not familiar with the plot of this movie, just basic synopsis. It's based on true events, which is no big shocker for a Scorsese film. He seems to like to do those nowadays, whether it be Silence or even Goodfellas is based on real people, real story. Casino, I don't think quite was. I'm not sure, but basically this film is centered around the character Frank Sheeran, who's portrayed by Robert De Niro, and it's a film that basically takes place throughout his life. He was he was like kind of like a muscle guy for like mobsters back in the 60s, specifically I think centered around Philadelphia or that area. He also was great friends with Jimmy Hoffa, who is someone who quote-unquote disappeared in the mid-1970s and nobody ever found his body. Yeah. And it's been one of the biggest kind of mysteries of what actually happened to him. The film, shows us, but whether that is the actual truth or not, I guess is left up to what you do or do not believe. But it's probably what happened if you know kind of the fact that mobsters and gangsters do
the
things.
Fact that a body's never been found, there's only so many things that could have happened, and that's a pretty likely one. Yeah.
Considering the relationship he had with, mobsters and the gangs at the time, and just how politically entangled he was. Yeah. Jimmy Hoffa was somebody who was a president of a big Teamsters, big union in the United States back in the 50s all the way through the late 1960s. Then he had a lot of contentiousness when it came to like the Kennedy administration, which you see in the movie, and he ended up in prison, and then all kind of stuff happened. But you basically get all of these kind of big time events and things through the character of Frank Sheeran. And what I really found was fantastic about the movie is you see how that life really negatively affected this person of Frank on a personal level. It's a very interesting film when it comes to just what it's dealing with thematically from that perspective, because I don't want to spoil anything, but just to say, it can be a very interesting, lonely, regretful life that it has been glorified in movies before. It has been glorified in Martin Scorsese films before, with this mobster life, this gangster life. It's so cool. You're just going into some place, whacking somebody, and then somebody gets rid of the body. You're rubbing elbows with like famous, important people in town and whatnot. But no, it can have a negative side to it too when it's all said and done. Like I said, it's a 3.5 hour film, but I honestly didn't really feel the runtime. I was fully engaged with it. because the plot pacing is so good.
Yeah.
Steven, did you feel it? I know you were in the theater, so that's a different experience than sitting at home.
I felt it didn't feel long necessarily to me. I mean, of course, when the people around you take you out of the movie, it doesn't help sometimes, but because as good as even the people that go to see the 3.5-hour Scorsese movie, there's still going to be annoying people at that movie, of course.
Oh yeah,
but. The length of the movie never bothered me. I never got up to have to go to the bathroom. Never checked my watch. I was very engaged. I think for me, I mean, we should. I guess we should discuss this a little bit. I think some of the early de-aging in the movie kind of bothered me a little bit because and this is the thing. I understand wanting to have these. This is a very epic movie in the sense of definitely covering a long period of time. You're supposed to be following, especially De Niro's character, through a time when, I mean, even going back to his 20s, all the way up until his death, or whenever, or in his late, well, not death, but in his late age, because we literally see a scene of him in war. And,
right, WW2.
Yeah, and he was obviously like in his 20s. I think that scene was the worst of the de-aging.
It's very interesting how there is literally only one scene of that, and it's very, very brief because the de-aging is very, very obvious. It's very obvious. The closer you get to, I guess, the quote-unquote present day of him telling his story, the better the de-aging gets.
The more you don't notice it. Because, the more he starts to look his age, the more we get closer to his actual age, the better it was. And I just think that the movie, the first maybe hour, or so, like it was too noticeable for me. Like I understand wanting to have these actors give this full performance, but it's like maybe we should have went with some other actors or to play them younger. Like I don't know. Really? Yeah, I would much rather a more like real people get, because like you're manipulating his face and you're making you're taking away from the actual performance for me. Like I don't want to see that glumminess in the face where it doesn't look real.
At times, you're right. It did not look real, and at times it looked fine. The biggest problem I had with the de-aging, I think Steven and I talked about this off camera earlier. Like I think it was earlier in the week, or I think it was after maybe he saw it. You mentioned it, and I kind of noticed it. When they did the de-aging of the faces, they didn't do any type of augmentation when it came to the bodies. So the bodies looked weird when it came to pairing the younger faces with the older bodies, because these guys are looking their age. Specifically, Robert De Niro's body didn't match up with the younger face, and at times it was noticeable. Like he has an older man's body.
And the thing is too is even his demeanor, even how he moves, is not like a young man. He's moving, especially with the scene.
That's what I meant.
A specifically somewhat graphic scene where he beats a guy up in the street. Doesn't look right to me because he's not moving like a young man.
Yeah, there was supposed to be a sense of ferocity and ferociousness and aggression within that sequence, and it didn't look like it just because the way in which De Niro was shooting it doing it was as an older man who can't move like a younger man does. And that's just like, biology and physiology and physicality and things like that. I mean, could they have used a body double or something like that?
I really wish he would have maybe
sped it
shot the scene differently, or used a body double to get somebody in there that could actually do the movements.
I'm really surprised that he didn't go with, I know a shot that I believe he's used before, perhaps even in Goodfellas or even in Casino. It's the upward angle shot, the POV shot.
Yeah, the God shot.
Somebody stomping on someone.
God's view.
Yeah, the God shot with someone stomping on someone, and that would have taken away any sense of the negative aspect of
that,
the
or he could have done it in a
it.
way where you didn't even necessarily see it. Like maybe we saw it through a glare in the window, or something like that, like something where it was a little bit less. But the thing is Scorsese's not always the most subtle when it comes to violence. He likes to show the violence.
No, he's
blunt when it comes to violence. So he wanted you to see it. But
and the film is not so much about like that though. Like, there's a lot of dialogue, there's a lot of plot in the movie, because we're moving from, time frame to time frame, plot point to plot point. So the movie's moving along, and there aren't quote unquote action sequences in this film, but there are active things happening, but they're happening on a much smaller scale than you would see in other quote unquote epic movies. This is like an epic drama or an epic old school. It's almost like, it's not quite a biopic because we're not getting a full life story, but we're getting like a career biopic. You know what I mean? Of what it was like to be the quote unquote the Irishman. That was his nickname. What is interesting is a lot of the events, the people in the film were real people. It was very interesting to see who they casted for real people. Like, I think Jack Houston was Robert Kennedy, and Bobby Cannavale was also in the movie. Those guys were on Boardwalk Empire. There's a lot of Boardwalk Empire people in this movie. And I'm like, I guess we're just taking everybody from previous Scorsese stuff and putting them in this movie. But I thought it was a really, really, well-made, well-told film with a lot of good depth in it. But Steven is right. It is a greatest hits from Martin Scorsese.
Yeah, I like the movie.
And that's not even a negative thing that I'm saying or agreeing with.
Not necessarily a negative thing, but it's something that just, I'm not saying Scorsese doesn't have it in him to wow me, because he just did with Silence on his last film.
Right.
But, I think when it comes to this genre, maybe he needs to this could maybe be his swan song to this genre.
Well, I'll say this: if it is his swan song, it's the most epic of all of his
gangster crime
types
films.
Of movies, gangster crime, real, based on true story types of movies. There's nothing that wows me in this film like, oh, I can't believe Scorsese did something so masterfully brilliant. Sure. I've never seen him do this before. That's not this type of film. Silence was that type of film. Yeah. Silence is a film from Scorsese that I've never seen him do before. And that's a bold film for him. This is a really great film from him, but it's not something that I think is going to be incredibly profound in any way.
I think it's just something. I just think it's something really he was interested, a story he was interested in telling, and it was definitely in a comfortable genre. I think. I mean, and it's he wanted to get these actors back together in parts that I think he felt were a good for them to all work together in.
Yeah, I think I would, like I said earlier, they're all great in it.
I think Al Pacino's the standout. I think he's the standout. Yeah,
as Jimmy Hoffa, he's big, bold Al Pacino, but
there's a vulnerability. There's a vulnerability in there too.
Oh yeah, there's a lot of character stuff with him that's really, really good. I really liked it's interesting the difference in relationship that Robert De Niro's character had with his daughter character, and the way Jimmy Hoffa interacted with his daughter character. That's one of the things that has really taken the internet by storm, if you will. Not by storm, but they've been talking about it a lot, is the fact that the daughter character in this film doesn't say much of anything, doesn't do much of anything, but her looks and her demeanor speak volumes. Even as she ages, they stay the same, but they become more profound as things go on. Even when we get to the adult version that is portrayed by Anna Paquin, what we see is this kind of this distance and this loneliness when it comes to these types of people, because they're so... Their work is so, dirty and, evil that their personal, their family around them doesn't want to associate with them. They don't want to be near them, and sometimes silence speaks louder than words. Like, just not talking to someone and not going anywhere near someone speaks more than just telling someone, hey, I hate you, or something like that.
Yeah, I think that was maybe the some of the best, the stuff with the daughter was some of the best, I think, parts of the movie for me, like in the sense of like having any kind of deeper meaning other than the themes of like legacy and stuff like that. I think that the daughter character, the relationship there really mirrored interesting with, like you said, how Hoffa and his son, played by Jesse Plemons. Them having such an open relationship with each other, him being involved in his affairs, made for their relationship being closer, and him guarding himself from his daughter and which you would want to with what he does. I guess, distances him from, her, and it doesn't seem like they ever have really a close relationship at all.
It seems like he didn't understand that they knew the type of person he was.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, they knew that their dad was a bad guy that was murdering people and working with bad dudes and stuff like that. But he just didn't see that because he's very, like, a very self-centered
the thing is
person.
the character seems, even, I think from the beginning, is just a cold character. I mean, there's not a warmthness to him at all. I mean, there's a little bit maybe when he meets Joe Pesci at this one point in the story at the near the beginning, where his truck breaks down and whatnot. There's a little bit of like a happiness there, but once he starts working with these guys, you can tell he's ambitious about getting in with these people, and once he does, he kind of just becomes a machine. He just becomes a guy that paints fences, paints houses.
Oh yeah, paints houses, which I think is code for
killing people.
Murder.
Yeah.
What we also forgot to mention is that Harvey Keitel is
yes, very film, little, but
very briefly. Someone as an old school person from Scorsese's filmography, so it's a truly greatest hits of people. But I don't know if you want to move on now, because I think they got a gist of what we thought about the film.
Yeah. I don't want to get into.
I think I liked it more than Steven. I guess it's fair to say.
And I liked it, but to me, it's little. It's definitely above. It's in. I guess you could say a high echelon of his movies, but not anywhere near the top. I mean, like he's done so many movies. I haven't even seen all his movies technically, but I definitely like it. It's in the top 10, I think, maybe for me for the year, but it's near the bottom of the 10. So.
Okay. Well, I think it's in my top 10 right now. Maybe it may be sitting top 5. I have to look. It's up there with like Once Upon a Time in Hollywood and those films.
It's right around that movie, I would say, but I think movies like Parasite and Lighthouse.
Oh yeah, I think Parasite is still my number one for those of you keeping track. Home. But let's move into our main topic, and that is movies about food, or food in movies, or food in general. Steven and I like food.
I do like food. If you could see me, which I guess if you go on Facebook you could find me. You can see that I like food. I mean, I'm not fat, Indeed. But I'm like not skinny.
Yeah, I wouldn't say so. No,
not skinny. No. But I do like food. And
right, I think many people do. I think that's kind of a
common but some people like food more than other people.
Very true. And, I would say that's also very true. But we also like movies as well, and sometimes they combine for a sense of delicious cinema, if you will. And I guess we'll just like start out with talking about just some random movies. Steven, do you have
let me say this. Let me say this.
Do you feel like
what are your now? There's different types of food movies. Now, are you now the classic? I think type that I think a lot of these movies is it. There's a movie about a chef or somebody that's like into a restaurant and trying to make their way into the business and be like get noticed. Is that your favorite type of food movie, or do you like ones that are a little bit more random, like a Tampopo?
I would say more like Tampopo, because I feel those films are more.
It's more organically about the food, not necessarily about the food, but the food's like there, and you're just like, God damn, the food.
The movies where it's about like a chef or whomever trying to make a successful business.
Well, I guess Tampopo is also about that, but it is got a lot more going on in it. So
yeah, the films tend to be more about the characters than they do about the food, which I guess is fine. I guess also Tampopo is as well. But I don't know, those films just seem so structured, like they have like, oh, there's going to be perhaps a romance going to happen that's going to like positively affect the food making or not affect the food making. Like certain tropes like that tend to bother me a little bit. But I kind of like, maybe the weirder food films.
What about Food Inc.?
Oh, the food. There's a lot of food documentaries out
Fast
there
Food Nation.
Actually that are very informative, because like the food industry is fascinating in many different ways, because it's partially corrupt, very bureaucratic, very weird. If people only knew where our food comes from, how our food is prepared, processed, made, no one would ever eat anything they buy at the supermarket.
They would think they would think about it, and then they would
think about it like
and then
twice,
most of them would eat, and then some of us would finally, yeah.
That's why, some people you always see like, oh, I only eat organic food, or I only eat like this type of food that's, not processed, or this type of food that's from this specific place. Because there's a lot, when you get money involved in anything, things tend to get very complicated and very dirty. And a lot of these documentaries show how dirty those things can get. That's why there's always like some type of emergency, or there's some type of recall when it comes to our food, whether it be our meat or vegetables, where it's like, oh, there's an E. coli breakout, or there's like, or some other type of terrible thing that can kill you. And it's like, why is that? Oh, because people cut corners because they want to make as much stuff as they can, to sell as much stuff as they can, to make a lot of money. It's a big old process. But yeah, one I did watch was Food Inc.
Yeah.
Back in for some type of
class.
I
was gonna say I saw that in school too. Yeah,
I think it was for like a morality, like an ethics class or something like that. Because whether ethical, like how ethical was it and all that kind of stuff. There's a lot of documentaries like that are very informative. The one that I actually watched in school, like this is not really it's food related, but it's not about the food industry. I guess it is, and that was Super Size Me.
Yeah.
The Morgan Spurlock film. They showed us that when I was a sophomore in high school, so it was around 2003, 2004, was my sophomore year of high school, and they showed us that in class, and it really had the negative effect on us as kids. We didn't take it seriously. So we just like, oh man, I wish we could eat McDonald's every day for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Man, those Big Macs look fantastic. You know what I mean? We didn't have the concept of like nutrition or health values when we were young. When we were in our teenage years, we didn't give a damn about any of that stuff.
I barely give a shit now.
Yeah, actually. Morgan Spurlock has gone on to make like various things like that. I think he had like a whole television series, docu-series about certain stuff that he wants to do. The thing with Super Size Me was that like the results could never be replicated outside of that documentary, so you never really knew if those things really did happen to him and are really going to happen to everyone who consumes this much of McDonald's every single day. He did have like really terrible health consequences because you're not supposed to eat fast food like that. That seems to be an obvious one.
The thing
you know what I mean?
You could do that to almost anything. Like if you eat way too much of anything, you can probably harm your health by doing that. I mean, if you eat even good foods too much, like if you eat like 20 apples a day, you're eventually probably going to get diabetes from the natural sugar. Like it's like...
Right, like there's, that also happens. It also really depends on who you are.
Genetics.
Like your physiology, your metabolism, how your body processes food, or what it can and cannot process easily. All that kind of stuff all plays a factor into how that affects you. There are other films that I really like that are just people eating food.
Sure.
And this is I guess I'll just dive into it. There's a trilogy of I call them like the trip movies with Steve Coogan and Rob.
Yeah, I've heard of that one. Yeah.
Where they play fictionalized versions of themselves because they're both actors, and they just go around like different. Like the first one is I believe is just in the UK where I think Steve Coogan is hired by some magazine to do like food reviews or something like that. So they just go around to different restaurants and just eat food and just talk about like stuff. Like they do you can watch these on YouTube. They famously do like impressions of people. They do Michael Caine. They do like James Bond. They do all kind of stuff like that, and they're just trying to one up each other in their impressions. It's really really hilarious. But there's The Trip, which came out in 2010, and the second one is The Trip to Italy, where they just go to all of the Italian delicious restaurants in Italy. So if you like pasta and all that kind of stuff, watch that. And the third one, which the second one came out in 2014, and I think the third one came out recently. It's called A Trip to Spain.
Yeah, I think that was like maybe 2 or 3 years ago.
I want to say, The Trip to Spain is 2017.
Yeah.
And they go to Spain and eat that type of Mediterranean food and whatnot. But the films are rather short. All of them are like under 2 hours, but they're really fun and easy to watch. They're comedies for the most part. A little bit of drama in there, a little fictionalized drama around the Steve Coogan character, who's kind of having like a career and personal like existential crises sometimes, and it's really interesting to see how they work that in. But the food in it, because they go to all these real places and this food just looks absolutely amazing. I've done the terrible mistake of watching, I think I watched The Trip or The Trip to Spain like while I was hungry. It was one of the worst things I've ever done.
Don't do that to yourself,
while
man.
watching a movie before. Yeah, it's like when you watch the Food Channel while you're hungry. What are you doing?
Yeah.
That's just self-torture.
Well, the movie I do this a lot with, and it always makes me go eat, is Chef from Jon Favreau.
I saw that in the theater. That was the small like Jon Favreau movie he did after he did Iron Man 2, and then after he did Cowboys and Aliens. No one remembers that movie, based on a comic book as well. But yeah, this is a small movie. I dig it. But Steven, it's your choice.
I love Chef,
talk about
man.
Why you love it.
What I love too is that I love the passion from Jon Favreau in this. He really invests himself in it, and to the point of now on Netflix he has this little show, a chef show for this, where he like hangs out with other celebrities, and this guy, I guess that was his like cook, like is the cook that the chef that has been teaching him since the movie. Him and that guy cook shit with family members and celebrities, and I just love. I can tell that he's passionate about cooking, so I love that. I love the story. It's a father-son story also.
It's a great father-son story. Basically, he's if I remember though, I only saw it in the theater. I actually own it. I should watch it again, but it always makes me hungry. That's why I don't watch it.
Yeah, the grilled cheese, just the grilled cheese alone that he makes.
I don't know how he did that, but the movie is about. Yeah, he's a chef. No shocker there. He's like working at like this restaurant, and there's a food critic that comes in and just kind of slams him. Right.
Yeah, he's Oliver Platt. Oliver Platt plays
him. and basically he just quits because I think he cusses out the boss.
Well, he's a disgraced chef. He gets blown up on Twitter. Gets in a fight with this. Yeah.
Yes. Oh yeah, because you know what he does? He doesn't understand how Twitter works, and so he tweets out something like that's harsh, and it just gets picked up and just retweeted, and he goes viral, and he ends up quitting, and he ends up starting a
food truck.
A food truck with his son. He's divorced, I believe.
Yeah, he's divorced from his
Sofia Vergara.
Yeah, but they're very friendly still.
Right. It's like an amicable separation.
And along with that, you have John Leguizamo, who was one of his cooks at the restaurant that follows him along on this new thing with the truck, and you got some cool cameos in there. Scarlett Johansson shows up for a little bit. She's a hostess. Robert Downey Jr. So all of Favreau's friends get a little cameo in the movie.
And this food truck only serves Cuban sandwiches, and they drive from like Florida, I think, back to California, and they're just stopping at a bunch of different places to sell their sandwiches, and these sandwiches look amazing. And I had, up until I saw this movie, I had never had a Cuban sandwich before. And then afterward, I just like tried to find like some good Cuban sandwiches locally, and I haven't had one in years. And just thinking about it makes me want to have one.
Dude, I know this podcast is gonna be. We're gonna want to go eat like right after the podcast.
Yeah, definitely.
Chef's one of my favorites. It's very rewatchable.
2004 came out in 2014. I saw it in the theater. Steven, did you see it in the theater or no? Oh, you did? Okay, cool. Another one for me is another documentary. And this is a kind of a serious not really serious, but fascinating documentary. And that is Jiro Dreams of Sushi.
Okay, I haven't seen this one.
It came out 2011. This was on Netflix for a while. I think it maybe still is. That's an amazing documentary. Basically, let me look it up on IMDb because it's been a few years since I've seen it. There's this. Let me get the premise up here. It's a documentary on 85-year-old sushi master Jiro Ono, his renowned Tokyo restaurant, and his relationship with his son and eventual heir Yashikazu. Now, it's been a few years since I've seen this documentary, so I'm not sure what the status is about like the relationship and all that kind of stuff, but it's a real-life, really exclusive, really elite sushi restaurant in Japan. And basically, like, you have to reserve, like, months in advance and all this kind of stuff. There's a specific way that you have to eat the food, a specific way that you have to really be respectful about the environment, all that kind of stuff. And this guy has been a sushi chef for, like, decades. Yeah. And he's, like, world-renowned. Celebrities go there. People travel from all over the world to go to this restaurant. And it's about kind of like, it's about him and his relationship with his son, who's his heir, who owns like this other another restaurant that kind of an offshoot of like the main restaurant and whatnot. But what I found really fascinating is that it also goes into like the history of kind of like of the sushi business and like just going back the decades into like the environmental consequences of overfishing.
Yeah.
And things like that, where like they showed this archival footage of these fish that they used to fish out of the ocean. They were massive, massive fish, and it shows like that over the years, because of overfishing, that the size of fish has just shrunk and shrunk and shrunk to the point where it's nothing like it used to be. And I just find that ultimately fascinating. And also, I find that this guy who is he's a perfectionist, but he never stops trying to be perfect. Like he never thinks that what he's doing is the absolute perfect, so he just keeps doing it every single day to be more perfect and more perfect. It's a fantastic documentary. I highly recommend it for anyone who's fascinated by sushi. If anybody likes sushi out there, sushi is not something that I've gotten into, but for some reason it's a hit amongst younger people.
It is,
and by younger people I mean like people in like their 20s. I don't know what it is with this new wave of like sushi loving that's going on right now, but I think Jiro Dreams of Sushi is a great film to kind of accompany that fervor. It's a short film. It's only an hour and 21 minutes. I think no, it was not nominated for an Oscar. It probably should have been, but it's a fantastic documentary. I thought I would mention that if people have not seen it.
Cool. I'll tell you, there's one that I saw recently. I wouldn't say it's one of the most special ones that I've seen, but it was okay. I saw that movie Burnt with Brad Cooper in it.
Yes.
And
we call him Brad.
Yeah, I know him. We're friends. So this came out in 2015. I missed it when it came out, and I'm always looking. Anytime I see a cooking film that looks interesting, I like to see it. And I missed this one, so I saw it on Netflix maybe a couple months ago. It's okay. Bradley Cooper's a good actor. I think that the one thing about this movie though is that it maybe takes itself a little too seriously. It kind of feels like the what's the movie he just did? A Star Is Born version of Burnt. Where it's like a star of he was a star, and then he's getting in. He's like making deals with people, organized crime, or he owes money to people, and he's becoming destructive, and he's got to have somebody help him get pulled back out of the fire, and it's a little bit maybe self-serious, but it's okay. It's always like a good food movie. I mean, when they're making these gorgeous foods in front of you, and Bradley Cooper is very committed, and it's okay. It's an okay one. You might like it. It's decent.
I remember seeing trailers for it before it came out, because right around that time, Bradley Cooper was that was when he's kind of getting really, really hot. I mean, he's still hot now, but And one would say that he was starting to burn bright, his star. But I remember that, and then I remember it kind of failing with critics, and critics not really digging the movie, and it kind of just disappeared. But now I believe it's probably streaming.
Yeah, Netflix. Yeah, it's written by Stephen Knight, who did like Locke.
Oh yeah,
and
yeah. He wrote the screenplay.
He wrote for screenplay for Serenity that just came out.
Oh, you had to bring that up. Yeah, he directed Locke and he directed Serenity. One great, one bad, in my opinion. It happens to the best of us. A film that I want to bring up. I guess I think I've mentioned it before. I don't know if I mentioned it here on the podcast or if I mentioned it to you in person. But this is an early film from Ang Lee. It's a movie called Eat, Drink, Man, Woman. And I have always wanted to talk about it here on the podcast, so now I can. And this is a film from 1994, early on Ang Lee, before he came over to the United States and started making American films and whatnot. It's a film that is the opening of this film is just a man cooking great Chinese food dishes. So the opening of this film is orgasmic from a food standpoint. It's just an amazing. Basically, he's an older gentleman who has 3 grown daughters, and basically he cooks like these big lavish meals for like Sunday dinner to get his family together, and he's just trying to keep them as close as he possibly can because they're all off living their own lives, and he's just trying to hang on to them as long as he can, and stay connected with them as long as they can. But things change and people drift away, and that's what happens with children and parent relationships, is that over time things get distant. That's just people live their own lives, so he's trying to keep them together, and it's really a fascinating, fantastic film. I really love it. It's a film that's part of his Father's Known Best trilogy. I think it's the last film, or I think it's the last film. Basically, his Father Knows Best trilogy is Pushing Hands, The Wedding Banquet, and Eat, Drink, Man, Woman. And it's a really great trilogy of familial type films. I've compared them a lot to Yasujiro Ozu's films. They all where a lot of his work had to deal with families and like generations and changing of the times and things like that. And that's kind of what these films are about. And Eat, Drink, Man, Woman is something I highly recommend. There is a Blu-ray of it available through, I believe, Olive or Kino put out, and it's something I bought years ago. And this is going to be me going off on a tangent, because years ago I took a history of modern China class, and they told us like our final paper, our final paper had to be anything to do with China, anything, like just open books. I was like, I like movies. Let's see who's a good Chinese director. And Ang Lee, he's from Taiwan, which is part of China. So I decided, what, I'm going to write a paper on Ang Lee. And I decided to write a paper. First, I was going to do one about his whole filmography, and then I started watching them all, and I'm like, there's no way this is going to happen. So I I'll do it on his first 3 films. I'll write a paper about start out with his early life, like going to like NYU and stuff like that, and then I'll just write about his first 3 movies, his Father Knows Best trilogy. And that's how I watched Eat, Drink, Man, Woman for the first time, and I ended up loving the movie. Yeah, I'm just checking it up now, and it is an Olive Films release. But it's unfortunately, I think, now out of print.
Well, thanks. Thanks for telling us all that, and then
now that I'm looking it up, it's like, I
was thinking about buying it. Now I can't. So appreciate it.
I wonder if that means that it's going to be re-released by somebody else.
Yeah, maybe.
Perhaps.
But okay. Look, we got to get to this one. This is a classic now. We have to talk about Ratatouille.
Oh, of course.
Yeah, because Ratatouille came out in 2007, directed by Brad Bird, the guy that does The Incredibles and what's that? Not Adventureland, Tomorrowland.
Yes.
So very good in animation. Of course, the Iron Giant also.
He also did Mission Impossible.
Yes,
Ghost
very
Protocol,
good, very good.
Maybe the best or favorite amongst Mission Impossible.
It is my
fans,
favorite, I think.
Who you are. Okay, there it is.
But yes, Ratatouille. And this movie is centered around a rat named Remy, who is very interested in cooking. He sees this famous chef on a TV, and he kind of molds him. He kind of mirrors himself after that chef, and then he kind of gets swept away by water in a drain, and gets into the city of Paris, and finds this restaurant, and kind of meets up with this garbage boy who then he teams up with him. What the hell? Got distracted by a weird noise that just came from nowhere. Sorry. Okay. But then he teams up with the garbage boy and becomes a chef. He sits under his hat and somehow makes him move his arms by pulling on his hair. I don't know how that works, but that's what happens. And though it is animation, very good animation,
it's Pixar,
man. I mean, it looks great, and it still makes me want to eat food. Though it's got rats in the kitchen. I mean,
you're not supposed to have rats in the kitchen, but this is an endearing anthropomorphic rat in Remy.
Patton Oswalt does the voice.
Patton Oswalt does do the voice. What I like about the movie is it's classic Disney Pixar, very endearing, has a nice heartwarming story to it. I mean, and it's a nice kind of, like I said, conflict of appearances versus reality, where you're not supposed to have rats in the kitchen, but what happens if this rat is an amazing chef?
I think the movie's a lot about inclusiveness. It's a lot about
like appearances aren't always defining who someone is and what their talent may be.
One of the main lines of the movie was, I think I'm paraphrasing, I could be wrong here, but he's like, not everybody can be a great cook, but anybody can cook, or something like that. So not everybody can be great, but anybody can try to be a great cook. Anybody can at least try, or something of that. I'm probably completely wrong, but it's basically saying that a good cook can come from anywhere.
Very true, and the food that they cook in the film looks great. But Ratatouille is the one they're trying to make because they want to impress. I think it's a film.
There's a critic. Again, there's a critic that is very well known. That's kind of like gauges whether you're going to have a 4-star rating or whatever on your restaurant. And in the finale of this movie, spoilers for a 12-year-old movie.
It is 12 years old.
The critic ends up having kind of a nostalgic trip over the dish that served him at the end, which ends up being ratatouille.
What is very interesting is because I think that can happen in real life.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, you eat something as an adult that perhaps you ate a lot when you were a child, and it brings you back to that moment.
No, I've had this recently. I'm not somebody that eats mustard a lot. For some reason, randomly, like I had mustard on something recently, and it shot my mind back to like the fact that I know this sounds disgusting, but I used to dip potato.
No judgment.
I used to dip potato chips in mustard, and it made me go back to that. Like I was like, I used to eat mustard with potato chips. That was weird. Like it just like ran back into my mind. I don't know how, but that's that sensory thing that like it can bring up images or bring up feelings you had when you tasted it. Same thing with smells or seeing something. It can bring back a lot of feelings, and that's what's great about food movies too. In general, is it can just I think has a higher sensory thing going on in there. Especially if you're familiar with the food.
Well, because food is a sensory-based thing. And what is interesting about this film is that of all of the Pixar films, this is one that has not gotten a sequel yet. And like Steven said, it's been 12 years. You think it's fine? I would rather have a sequel to this than a sequel to some of the other ones.
It probably is more open. It's a lot better set up to have a sequel, I think, than some of the other ones. But they're not. I don't think I think a lot of it depends on merchandising. Oh wait,
yeah,
so the
merchandising.
Ratatouille movie didn't have probably like the highest sales of merchandising. Oh, I want that rat, please. Let me get the rat. So like compared to the other ones, like the Cars movies and the Toy Stories, and they have better merchandising. So that's why there probably hasn't been a sequel. That's just my opinion.
Yeah, I also don't think it was a huge box office hit. Keep in mind this was 2007.
I can check it out.
Disney. Yeah, go to that awful boxofficemojo.com now.
Well, I can tell you, based off of Wikipedia, which could be wrong, it tells me that it was a $150 million budget and it made $620.7 million. So it made good money.
Chunk of change. What was I saying?
Yeah, it made good money.
Yeah, I don't know what the heck Disney's got there.
And also, of course, Michael Giacchino did the score.
Yeah, I think because he worked for Brad.
Yeah, but he's done like Up. He did Up, and so he worked. Yeah. He's done a lot of Pixar movies. He did the Incredibles movies with Brad Bird, and he did this one, and then he did Up. Mm-hmm. He might have done another one. I don't know. He might have done Inside Out or something maybe.
Cool.
But yeah.
That's. I don't know if I want to stay in animated or if I want to move to
back to reality for a second.
You know what? Let's talk about Tampopo.
Okay, all right.
Why not?
Tampopo, it's one of the big ones.
I talked about sushi already. I'm in that area of the world. So Tampopo is a film that I had no idea what it was. I had never heard of it before until it came out on Blu-ray for Criterion a few years ago, and I just saw a bunch of people talking about it. And Tampopo is a movie based off of ramen.
Yeah.
The pasta,
or what we call in America, oodles and noodles.
Oodles and noodles, whatever you want to call it. I mean, but this ramen is like
it's
not the cup of noodles ramen. It's the legit
doesn't have
ramen
wax
you get
on
in
it.
Restaurants.
Yeah.
Yeah, you don't have. There's not like a powdered flavor packet thing or whatever that they use. But Tampopo, the Blu-ray came out 2017, so I think I've been aware of it for about 2 years. And Tampopo came out in 1985, which is quite a time ago, 2 years before I was born, a few years longer than Steven was born.
I was born in 89.
Yes, he was. And it has a very young Ken Watanabe in the film, who plays a character called Gun.
Let them fight.
Let them fight. Basically, the premise is like a truck driver stops at a small, like, family-run noodle shop, and basically he decides to help it become a bigger, more successful business.
It's now ran by a female of the family.
There's a woman who runs it, and it's like a small, out of the way ramen shop. It's not very good ramen. Well, like they're always kind of like judging like what's good ramen versus not good ramen. Like
one of the big things is also that traditionally men, and of course in that culture men typically run things anyway, but she wants to be the cook and run the place, and it's not typically, women are not known for doing that, so she's having a hard time even getting help with anybody because she's a woman. That's part of the problem. And basically they go around and just do like ramen research. Well, they go around to like different ramen restaurants to see, like, to just judge the different types of ramen. What is most fascinating about this movie is there is another plot line, a subplot in this movie about a romance between a woman and a member of the Yakuza. Yeah. Or the Yakuza, however you want to say it. The Yakuza is the Japanese gangs, mafia, if you will. Japanese organized crime division, and it's a mix of sex and food. Yes.
And it's really fascinating. It's really weird. There's an infamous moment of this movie. It's infamous. You can watch it on YouTube, and people talk about it all the time. Where they crack an egg, and they basically like exchange the egg yolk from one mouth to the other in a sexual manner. They mix sex and food, and it's a very interesting combination.
You're either gonna really like it, or you're gonna really be turned off.
Or you're gonna be weirded out by it. It really all depends on and it's random too. Like, it has nothing to do with our main story about trying to create a great ramen restaurant. it's just a side thing.
It's something that I think supports the thematic,
the
passion of the movie. About the love of high cuisine.
Food. Yeah, I mean, and there is a certain ecstasy when it comes to really, really good food. Yeah. You know what I mean? Food, like I said earlier, is a sensory type thing. And our senses and our nerves are all part of like how we feel.
Yeah, and the thing is, a lot of times we're not getting the high quality stuff. We're like just going to the fast food place and getting something that you're gonna end up pooping out like 5 minutes later anyway. So when you get real good food, like when you go out and you go to the steakhouse that's like high dollar, you get like the $25 steak, or whatever it is, and you put it in your mouth and you actually chew it. Slow and not try to swallow it, and it is. You can have this like moment,
where you have this moment of elation or happiness, and this movie's definitely playing on that, and it's also about like the relationship with the characters, and there's stuff like that I think is also really good. It's a funny movie too. There's some there's a lot of comedy in it too. Where they're just it's like trial and error trying to get like the right.
Well, they keep trying to
cook the meat.
Yeah, they keep trying to find out, like you said, going around looking at other people's ramen, and some of them are kind of like figuring out that they're trying to like sneak away with some ideas, so they like run them off, and and so it's a very fun movie. Very, it isn't a. It's definitely not traditional storytelling. There's, like you said, it weaves in and out of other storyline. So, I mean, don't expect a straightforward movie. It's jumps a little bit around, but it's very entertaining. I really enjoy it.
And what is interesting is I'm someone who's actually never had ramen before.
What?
And I really want ramen when I watch this movie. Like, I ended up like Googling like all my local restaurants to see who had like good ramen, and I really wanted to try some. I still haven't yet,
man.
So I've got to do that.
Yeah, do that.
I know I'm deprived. I've deprived myself.
It's been a minute for me. I mean, I haven't had good ramen. I haven't had some ramen in a long time. We recently actually went to a Japanese, but we didn't get any ramen. I got a bunch of that shrimp, and it was good. It's good. But I don't know how much more you want to talk about here.
I'm on. What are we doing on time?
Yeah, we're almost an hour in. I mean, we can go a little bit longer. I mean,
sure.
But I've only seen so many. So I mean, you gotta.
I mean, there are so many.
I mean, there's some that I've seen and some that I haven't seen. I mean, we can talk about Sausage Party.
You want to throw Sausage Party is very divisive. That's what I was gonna stick in the animated realm. Sausage Party. You want to see a raunchy animated comedy with anthropomorphic animated food characters? That's Sausage Party. But what is interesting is the whole thing's like an allegory of like anti-religion.
Yeah.
It's really fascinating.
It has nothing really to do with food itself, really. I mean,
no, other than the fact that the characters are all food based. But what is interesting is also plays like on racial stereotypes, where like the Mexicans are the tacos, or the Jew
kind of you are what you eat kind of thing.
Yeah, I mean, to a certain standpoint, I guess. That's really interesting.
I'll be honest with you. When I saw it, I didn't care for it that much. I mean, I think that all that stuff, the themes going through it, were interesting in that kind of movie. But I think that the movie turned me off because it was a little bit too raunchy. Like, it was just in your face raunchy. Like, it was too much. Especially the last scene where they all have sex with each other.
Well, it's an
orgy of food. And I'm like, this is just stupid.
This is crazy.
This is kind of dumb.
Okay, I mean, just going all a little bit off book here. We're talking about food and sex, literally. There's, in the movie 9.5 Weeks,
yes,
there's a food, like, sex scene that has been parodied, like, several times. And I'm trying to remember who's in the movie. I think, Kim Basinger is in the film.
Yeah.
And I remember it being parodied on, like comedy, you'd be surprised how tough it is to search this on IMDb without being able to put in like the half slash mark. But yeah, that's a very famous food sex scene because like we were talking about, like food and sex are very closely. Wow, this is. Hold on.
I got you. What you need?
Make some time.
You got Matt Damon was a producer on this actually, and yeah, it's got Mickey Rourke and Kim Basinger.
Oh, there it is. I couldn't look for some reason. I couldn't type in Basinger. I was putting it Basinger versus Basinger. Yeah. So you just say that.
Matt Damon's a producer in the movie.
Are you sure?
Yes. Oh no, I'm sorry, Mark. That's Mark Damon.
Oh, Mark Damon.
Yeah, that guy.
Here we go. 9.5 weeks. Yeah. Oh my goodness.
I love the poster.
Yeah, Mickey Rourke, Kim Basinger. I believe they're the two that have the Rendezvous with Sex.
The Rendezvous with Sex.
Yeah.
Well, this is back when Mickey Rourke was like very hot. He was.
1986. We're talking peak.
Yeah,
Mickey Rourke.
This is when he was good looking.
This was before.
This is before he went into boxing.
Went to boxing, got all messed up. This was directed by Adrian Lyne, and Adrian Lyne, I think, also directed Jacob's Ladder, Indecent Proposal, talk about sex, Fatal Attraction, sex. What the heck was up with this guy making sex movies?
He's perverted.
Or sexy movies.
Jeez.
Well, he also did Flashdance, which has that very, energetic scene with the dancing and all that kind of stuff. He also did the 1997 remake of Lolita with Jeremy Irons.
Yeah.
This guy had a thing. For
he wanted to be kind of like Lars von Trier. He wanted to be Lars von Trier, but just all sexy movies. Just kidding.
Yeah, there's a lot of scenes in movies. I mean, I'm just looking at lists here for. We already mentioned Tampopo. There's a couple of other movies that I want to mention, like Babette's Feast, which is like another Criterion film.
Yeah.
There's films that take place at like banquets and things like that. I mean, I mentioned The Wedding Banquet, but it has nothing to do with an actual banquet. Let's see. Yeah, Babette's Feast is one. But yeah, there's a bunch of them that I could go through, but we've done a few. I'm almost like stalling for time.
Well, I mean, there's a lot. There's a lot of other ones, but there's ones I haven't seen. I mean.
Julie and Julia, which is about Julia Child, portrayed by Meryl Streep, and Amy Adams, who's like a food blogger.
Yeah.
And she's going through Julia Child's cookbook, and she's trying to like make every single one, and it shows like her like, some she can't, she's struggling to do, some she does very easily. Came out in 2009. It's a really solid film. What's her name? Amy Adams is one of my favorites.
Oh yeah.
So I'm kind of unobjective when it comes to her. I always think she's great in everything, and she had a really good like 2000s, like when she was trying to make her career and whatnot. She was really doing a lot of solid roles. She still does great roles now.
Sure.
I mean, it's not like she's doing bad roles, but she's doing. But I really liked her early roles when she was doing like Enchanted and things like that. She also has that great role around the same time in Doubt. Wow. Imagine that, like Doubt, and then Julia and Julia came out the next year. Imagine going from like one super serious film to a film about cooking.
Yeah. Well, you got to have some downtime. You get a little bit, something a little happier.
I guess that's
there's
true.
Also one that's pretty popular. It's called Eat, Pray, Love.
Oh yes,
Ryan Murphy directs it. From American Horror Story fame.
Yes.
Julia Roberts, Javier Bardem. So good cast. I know it's popular amongst the females.
Oh yeah, yes. I've never seen it. I know it's based on a popular New York Times best-selling book.
It's long too, man. It's 2 hours and 20 minutes long. Jesus.
Wow,
that's a long food movie.
That's a long. Wow.
Jeez.
There's also the movie called Waitress, which is about which they've turned into a Broadway play now.
Huh.
And this movie is stars what's her name?
Carrie Russell.
Kerry Russell. I was going to say Felicity, but that was not be right.
That's a character she played.
Yeah, it's a character she played in Felicity. And it is a film that's about pie making.
Yeah.
Well, not really about pie making, but pie making is in it. And Kerry Russell, Nathan Fillion is in it. Cheryl Hines is in it. And basically, she is a pregnant, unhappily married waitress in the Deep South. She meets a newcomer to her town, portrayed by Nathan Fillion, who's like I think he's a doctor.
Yeah.
I think he's her doctor, actually. But he's a doctor. And they end up having like a relationship and all that kind of stuff. But the place that she works at is known for having great pies.
Yeah.
And there's just scenes of her just making like these amazing pies. And Stephen, I'll be honest, I've never been a pie person.
I'm
always a cake. I'm a cake man.
I'm a cake guy.
A cake person.
I mean, depends on what kind of pie we're talking here. I mean, I like pudding, chocolate pudding pie.
Oh, that's an interesting pie. I know we just talked about Thanksgiving. Pumpkin pie is a traditional
I could do
Thanksgiving
pumpkin pie.
Apple. Everybody's like, there's nothing more American than apple pie.
I'm not a big apple pie guy.
I'm not a big pie person myself. I never liked the idea of mixing, like my cakes and cookies with
It's just
fruit.
a little bit too.
That always kind of bothered
me
me a little bit.
I don't know. I don't like it. It's just a little bit too messy. Pies can get messy. I don't like them. I don't know. I don't know. But
I mean, there's movies like Chocolat. Let's see.
Soul Food.
Yeah,
Soul Food.
Soul Food. Yeah. I mean, of course Chef we've already mentioned. I'm just looking at random lists now to see what I can grasp onto.
Good Burger.
Oh man, when I was a kid, I watched Good Burger a lot. For those of you who don't know what Good Burger is, back in the 90s on Nickelodeon, there was a show called All That, which was basically SNL for kids. And a lot of people who were on it, actually not a lot of people, basically one person, Kenan Thompson, went on to actually be on SNL and still on SNL, but they would do skits. And one was Good Burger. And then it was so popular they made a movie in it with Kenan Thompson, Kel Mitchell, Sinbad is in it. And the premise of the movie is basically like it's Good Burger versus like this big giant corporate chain that's taken all their business away because they're making these big gigantic beef patty burgers that everybody loves. And it's all about them trying to they discover that that they're actually putting toxins or something to make the burgers bigger than they are, and basically steroids.
Sure, yeah.
They're putting steroids in the burgers, and they've got to figure out how to expose them and stuff. It's a fun comedy that I think is really only endearing to our generation who grew up with it. If you showed somebody that movie today and they had never seen it before, they wouldn't know what the heck you were doing.
Yeah. Oh.
Also, The Founder, which is the founding of probably the biggest fast food chain in the world, McDonald's. And you find out how Ray Kroc was basically a shitty guy who stole the idea from these two brothers and basically nationalized it, made it a chain. And it's Michael Keaton's in the film. It's a solid film.
It's okay. It's all right.
It's not great, but I dug it, and it was very interesting to go back to a time where McDonald's wasn't what we know of it now. You can actually the burgers were actually real burgers and not the crap we get now, which we all shell out our money for anyways. And it's also interesting how to see how a lot of those things happen. Someone takes someone's good idea, steals it, and makes shit tons of money off of it. Kind of like Facebook.
Yeah, kind of had the Social Network kind of imprint in there a little bit. I think that for me that movie just didn't have enough going on in it to be interesting. I don't know.
I thought it was going to be a bigger hit than it was.
I was hoping it
really
would be
wasn't.
for Keaton's sake, because I'd love to see Keaton win an Oscar one day, but he should have won it for Birdman, but he didn't. But
I know Birdman or even
Spotlight,
the other film, Spotlight.
Yeah, I think Birdman he got robbed, but.
Oh
yeah, I think that was.
Was that the Eddie? That's the Eddie
Redmayne year. Yeah, he got robbed.
That was the Eddie Redmayne. Yeah.
By the traditional biopic movie, But yeah, it's an okay movie. I didn't get blown away from that movie.
Would you consider this a food movie? And I've actually never pieced this together until possibly right now, although maybe I've just been repressing it. Well, Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory.
I guess technically, yeah. I mean, I don't think it goes on anybody's lists, but I mean, it is a movie about chocolate. I mean, it's candy. I mean, it's
when they go to that factory and they're just starting to freaking eat the leaves off the trees because they're candy.
I mean, and it's a good one. I like it. Gene Wilder. I don't care for the remake. Charlie and Chocolate Factory. I wasn't even going to mention it. I don't like that.
There's a scene. There's a famous scene in Sofia Coppola's Marie Antoinette where, what's her name? Kirsten Dunst, who's portraying Marie Antoinette, just surrounded by cakes.
Yeah,
I see that coming up on a lot of people's lists. I've seen that film. Very interesting film.
Yeah, it's interesting.
Not much plot going on in it, but it's fascinating aesthetic film.
Yeah, it's got that mix of modern and old school stuff going on in it. Yeah.
Well, she did have that famous line of the real Marie Antoinette. It's also in the movie as well. Let them eat cake.
Yeah.
Maybe while the French people were starving in the streets.
Yeah.
There's a great scene. There's a great scene in Spirited Away, that film by Hayao Miyazaki, where there's just this weird creature and they're just surrounded by food. There's a GIF that I'm looking at right here of it, and that's a great scene. But we're drifting.
Well, yeah,
into
we're just
now.
trying to say that though even in movies that are not necessarily about food can play a great role, can make for great scenes or really spice up a scene or something. For instance, this is one of your favorite movies, Lord of the Rings, when Smeagol pulls out that fish out of the water and just starts eating it raw.
Delicious.
Crippling. You love that. That makes that scene great.
Oh, when the close up of him eating the fish raw, at the beginning of Return of the King, is that what you're referring to?
Yeah.
Yeah. And then there's another scene where he's where he's in where they're in Ithilien, where Faramir is and Sam and Frodo, and they catch him and he pulls a fish out of the water and he's bashing it against the rock, and he's trying to kill it and trying to eat it. It keeps slipping away.
There's also lamprey bread.
Yeah, fills the stomach of a grown man for what, 3 days, something like that. And
but yeah, food can play a great role even when it's not the center of a movie. Food can always make for greatness in a scene. But of course there's tons of stuff we could have talked about, but
I mean, Steven, a question.
Okay, I'm listening.
Drifting into a weirder territory.
Oh, Jesus.
I guess mine as well. This is the Cinema Discovery Project. Would you consider films about cannibalism food movies?
No, I don't. No.
Okay, so Soylent Green, Raw.
No, not food movies.
Etc. etc.
No, that's something. That's something else.
Yeah, because I'm seeing those are more horror.
They're horror movies, but they're not. We're not talking about now. If the movies were about how to cook humans and the best way to get to then that would be one thing. But they're not. Cannibalism is like a allegory for something else.
Well, yeah, I mean something like Sweeney Todd,
sure,
Demon Barber of Fleet Street, where they're making the meat pies. I guess you have Delicatessen, which is I think Jean-Pierre Jeunet's film from '91. That's an odd film. You gotta if you those of you who haven't seen that film, check it out. I know Jean-Pierre Jeunet. He's known for doing Amélie. Yeah. But he did other films, and Alien Resurrection doesn't count for anything. So we won't even talk about that. I was just wondering.
Yeah, I don't know that I consider,
because I'm looking at a list and they keep bringing up Soylent Green.
Well, I mean, look, let's talk to a cannibal. We need to get Cannibal in here and see what he thinks, because I don't think we're gonna get the right perspective from us unless you're a cannibal. I don't know.
Have you ever seen the movie? We're just going off book here. Do you remember the comedy Waiting?
Yeah, of course.
With Ryan Reynolds and all those cats. Watching that movie, did it ever make you squeamish every time you went to
it made me definitely not want to fuck with the people that were serving my food. I can tell you that.
Yep, I never fuck with them. I to this day
I will never.
I don't mess with them. No,
I will never send food back.
No, this is delicious. This is not even what I wanted. This is amazing.
Yeah. But yeah, and we could go into a lot of stuff. I think we covered a lot. There's tons of stuff. If there's something that you love that we missed, put it in the comments. Tell us some of your favorite food movies or food moments in movies. Andrew, where can you be found?
You can find me on Twitter at Capzilla06, as well as my YouTube channel, Capzilla Productions.
And you can find me on Facebook, Stephen Billings. You can find me posting all the things I buy on Instagram, Cinema Discovery Project. You can also find the audio for this podcast on Podbean or Apple Podcasts. That'll be it for this episode. Thanks for listening, and hey, keep on watching them movies.
I know I will.